What's up? I'm your host Joseph and welcome to Fix Your Unique Flow. Today is another episode of Whatever Happened To. And I'm going to talk about a character I have to kind of preference a little bit before I get into it. So back when I started collecting comic books, kind of early in my high school career, so like freshman year, I really got into collecting them. And I was exploring and trying to find other books outside of what I was already getting, which were like X-Men, Wolverine, and The Amazing Spider-Man. Like I was getting just really those books and that was it. So I'm in the comic shop and I'm looking around, and this is also a time when I kind of started getting into sports a little bit. I gotta say, I didn't grow up like watching sports a lot. I enjoyed playing them, but like I didn't watch them in the house. I felt that was kind of actually boring for me, because just sitting there just watching them, I'd rather go play them. So the one sport I did connect with was football. So I really started getting into football and liking it a lot. And once again, I'm in the comic shop, going down, looking at the covers, all these books, and trying to figure out what else do I want to add to my collection. I don't want to get a whole bunch of new things, but just let me find something different. And I came across this cover, and this is what this episode is about. And I can almost guarantee no one knows this character. It was a short-lived series, and I know I'm probably one of the few people that actually collected it. So today's episode is about Whatever Happened to NFL SuperPro. Issue 1 of NFL SuperPro premiered in October of 1991, but he actually had a book that was like a one-shot special earlier in March. And that's the first book that I picked up that kind of put me on. So NFL SuperPro is about this retired football player, Phil Grayfield, who was a Chicago Bear. And that's one thing I loved about it right away, because it was like they used real NFL teams in this comic book. So of course, since I'm from Chicago, I had to support the Bears. I was already hooked. So it's about this former Chicago Bear player who was actually injured and retired, and he went on to go and do sports journalism. So he would do interviews and interview all these legends and do a little commentary on the side. And that was kind of the beginning premise of the book. And once again, looking at this does not seem like a comic book. So Phil received his powers in this freak accident. So Phil went to go interview this scientist who was a really big football collector. He had all this memorabilia, and he was doing this interview with him. He brought along his cameraman, and they went to like his mansion, and he was kind of like really, almost if you can say, obsessed with Phil's career. So he was really happy to do this interview and grant him this, and he went to his house, like this big mansion, like excluded from everything else, and he was showing all his memorabilia, like cards and jerseys, and helmets, and footballs that were signed. And Phil's just doing the interview, everything seems fine. He's like, I'm also a scientist, and he showed him that he created this suit. It's basically a football suit, but it's like a suit of armor. So it has all kind of enhancing things into it. It's an indestructible like football uniform, and he kind of shows them this, and Phil's like, oh, that's pretty cool. During the interview, these crooks break in and they steal a bunch of the memorabilia. Right? They think they either hurt the old man, the scientist, or they kidnap him, and they wrap Phil up in like this old football reels, these old like reel by reel tapes, and they kind of wrap him up. And so they also set the place on fire. And so Phil's like, I gotta get out of here. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And so he's like trying to rock and shake and get himself out. And he's in the room where the scientist had created a lot of things. Not where the suit is, but he's in the room where a lot of chemicals are. So he kind of knocks his seat back, knocks over the chemicals, and they kind of get onto the old reel or the film, and the fire comes in and starts to burn him. And so like a traditional old school superhero, the combination of these experimental chemicals with this old film reel burns him, but it's like he feels like his skin is on fire and he can't stop, but it's changing him too. And so the house is starting to crumble, and the only thing that can save him is putting on this suit. So Phil puts on this indestructible suit and is able to get out of the house alive. Once Phil gets out, he keeps the suit and he decides to, become a superhero. He's like, you know what? I need to help people that have been in unfortunate situations. It gives me purpose again, and I can actually run and jump and do everything I used to do with this suit, because it's enhancing like his injuries. So he's become better. Like the suit also kind of healed him as well. So he looks normal, but he's a little bit enhanced. So like super strength, super speed, not like super fast running, but he has more than the average speed, increased stamina. Once again, he can leap, throw, catch, and he's like almost indestructible. So he just decides, you know what, maybe the best thing to do is to use my powers for good and help others who've kind of been in predicaments. So that's the introduction of NFL SuperPro. It's a wild book. I suggest you check it out. They've had a lot of guest cameos, and that's the second thing that sold me on the book, because issue 1 also had Spider-Man as a guest cameo. So it kind of makes sense, since NFL SuperPro is a sports reporter and Peter Parker is a photographer for the Daily Bugle. They kind of met up to kind of work on this project together in issue 1. And that's how they sold a lot of books back in the day, like in the early 90s. They kind of would do crossovers, and you would be introduced to new characters or new books. You'd be like, oh, let me check this out because the character that I already know is in this book. So let me see what's going on. Why are they over here? And that was kind of like the hook of the 90s, like kind of bringing people together. As far as some of the villains SuperPro faced, there was some really weird ones, obviously dealing with some athletes who were experimenting with like steroids and enhancements and, you know, chemicals to make them stronger or better. So like kind of hawkish-like creature. But the weirdest character that I remember and I love, and I still remember the name for this to this day, is a character called Pennypacker. He was a CPA, so a certified public accountant. And I can't even remember how he got his powers, but all I know is that when he got his powers, he had the ability to shoot pennies. And yes, you heard me correctly, pennies from his wrist. And that was his superpower. He would go around like doing stuff, robbing, and just bombarding people with pennies. And like, you know, super convulsive with a super like kinetic force. So I just thought it was really weird. It's an interesting book. One of the co-creators of the book is Fabian Nisi, who is one of the co-creators of Deadpool. So if you're looking for like weird antics, crazy villains, and then just a little NFL connection, you should definitely check out NFL SuperPro. It is an old book, hard to find right now, but I'm sure it's available online somewhere. And that has been this episode of Whatever Happened To. So I will catch you all next time. Don't forget to like, drop a comment below. And if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe. What are you waiting for? And hit that notification bell to be notified when new videos drop. Until next time, peace. What's up? We are talking about fiction in flow. What's up? If you don't have it, you are truly missing. Fiction in flow. What's up? We are talking about fiction in flow. What's up? If you don't have it, you are truly missing. What's up? We are talking about fiction in flow. What's up? If you don't have it, you are truly missing.